From Los Angeles, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand. Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Puck Podcast. It is Sunday, April the 13th. This is our first period of a three-period podcast. In the first period, which some of you are watching on YouTube, we recap the past week in the NHL on and off the ice. Second period is our interview or special feature segment. This week, Doug will have a chat with Brandon Pillar, one of the co-hosts of the Locked On Senators podcast and YouTube show. And our third period is our fan feedback segment where we read listener emails and have our off-ice report, tell you what's going on in our lives. You can find all three periods on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you're seeing on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and get notified when our latest shows come out.
The Puck Podcast is the longest-running NHL podcast in the world, having delivered at least one episode a week, every week since July of 2006, a streak of 977 weeks and counting. Eddie and I have combined for over 50 years of experience in sports media, and we've been part of the NHL media since 2006. Every week on this show, we look back at the past 7 days in the NHL, discuss every game, trade, signing, suspension, firing, or hiring, and we treat all 32 teams equally. So the biggest story is where we start each show. And for that, I turn it over to my good friend, my co-host, and a man who once told me that if there were ever a fire in his house, he'd grab all the orange soda and tell Karen to grab the dogs and follow his voice. Eddie Garcia.
Thank you, Doug. Once again, we are recording this show Sunday afternoon, not recapping the games on Sunday because I have once again been asked to co-host Locked On NHL Game Night, a new podcast and YouTube show that recaps the night in the NHL. So, Doug, thank you again for accommodating me on this. But since we didn't recap last Sunday's game for the same reason, we will have a full 7 days of games to recap. Now, the NHL regular season has 4 days left as we record this show. Last day of the regular season, April 17th. We're 7 days away from the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is Saturday, April 19th. So far, 7 of 8 playoff spots have been claimed in the East, 6 of 8 playoff spots out West. Only 5 teams are still alive for 3 playoff spots, and 2 playoff matchups have been finalized. We will recap every game over the past week and tell you how we got to this point. So let's go back to last Sunday, where we had 8 games on the schedule. One of them we're not going to talk about because we talked about it at length last week, and that was, of course, the Islanders' 4-1 win over the Capitals, where Alexander Ovechkin scored career goal number 895. Elsewhere on that day, we had the Senators beating the Blue Jackets 4-0. Linus Ullmark, 29-save shutout for Ottawa. Nicholas Mantapalo scored his first NHL goal in the win as well. Big win for the Senators, trying to lock up their first playoff spot. I believe it's 9-year drought for them, 7 or 9 years.
7 years.
7 years, thank you. 9 years is Detroit. The Blue Jackets, meanwhile, obviously this hurts their wild card hopes. Right now, Ottawa at this point, 5 games left, 5 points up on the Canadiens for the number 1 wild card spot in the East.
And I had Linus Ullmark with 30 saves, and he became the...
well, you're wrong. It was definitely 29.
We'll find out. But they are the third team, the Senators are, to have 10 or more shutouts in a single season. They also did it, or the other 2 teams that have done it in the past 5 years, the Flames in 2021-22 and the Islanders in 2020-2021. So third team in the last 5 years to have 10 or more shutouts in a single season. And Ottawa's home shutout streak is now at the end of that game at 153 minutes even, longest stretch since 154-minute, 53-second streak from March to April 8th in 2017. So Linus Ullmark and the Senators pitching some shutouts this season, and in this stretch, over 2 games of shutout streak going.
Yeah, we've talked about it when it comes to the Ottawa Senators. One of their things that they've been missing is that stability in net. And Ullmark has been injured a bit here, but when he's been in there, he's been obviously very good.
Yeah, they got their money's worth when he's available. And your best ability, Eddie, is your availability.
I've heard that somewhere before. The Canadiens beat the Predators 2-1 to help their playoff chances. Cole Caulfield gets his 36th of the year. Patrick Laine, not a power play goal, his 20th of the season. And goalie Jakub Dobeš, 36 saves in net in a win for Montreal.
I'm just going to do it every time. Jakub Dobeš had 37 saves. No, 36 is fine. I would almost hypnotize Patrick Laine into thinking he's constantly on a power play so that he's a threat to score.
The problem is, on the power play, he just stands there. And he can't really.
He does it 5-on-5 too. That's why he's on his 6th team in 5 years.
That's fair.
Lane Hudson, by the way, factored in on the game-winning goal. He has matched Chris Chelios for 4th highest single-season assist total by a Canadiens defenseman period, rookie or veteran, fourth highest in Canadians history, and they're an original six team. And he tied Brian Leetch and Larry Murphy for most career assists by a rookie blue liner in NHL history. So Lane Hutson having literally a historically good rookie season.
Yeah, he's very fun to watch. And I watched a few Canadian games this week, and they showed, we love the Canadian broadcast because they show a lot of other things other than let's go start drop the puck. Like they show the guys in the tunnel getting ready to come out, all that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. But I did see Lane Hutson standing next to a few of the Canadians. I did not realize how small he is. He is not a big man. He is not big at all, but he can move and he can scoot and he can change directions very, very well.
Yeah, today's NHL is much more allowing for the diminutive defenseman.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, 15, 20 years ago, he would not have even been drafted and would not have gotten much of a shot because he's too small and you got to be a physical defenseman. And we'll talk about a play in a bit that is an example of why you need a physical defenseman. So I get it, but his skating and his offensive abilities are obviously elite. And I don't think anybody saw this coming. When we go back to our preview, I don't think anybody said on the Calder watch list, make sure Lane Hutson's on your card because that guy's going to have a all-time rookie season as a defenseman. But he has established himself, and that's the beauty of pro sports. Is as we get to the draft later this summer and the undrafted players, all you need is an opportunity. And once you get there, you make it impossible for them to cut you and you prove to them that you can do the job. And teams are going to play the best players. And Lane Hutson has earned his time and his opportunity and is added to a very good young core in Montreal, which is why they're probably playoff bound.
And we've had the Sutters, we've had the Stalls. Most recently, we've had the Hugheses. He's got brothers that are coming up soon in the NHL as well. I don't know if they'll be as good as him, but we'll have
they'll get
Hudsons.
An opportunity because of him.
The Hudsons will be heard from around the NHL here soon, not just Lane. Red Wings help out their chances of getting a wild card spot. 2-1 win over the Panthers. Alex DeBrincat is 35th. JT Compher, the game winner, and Cam Talbot, 32 saves in net. Florida had lost 5 in a row at that point, but they don't seem to care, according to head coach Paul Maurice. He said they do not care where they finish in the Atlantic Division standings, 1, 2, or 3. He says they are resting up with the playoffs and getting ready for that. So maybe he's saying that because they are banged up and, that it doesn't, they're not, you know what I'm saying? So, but he's saying, whatever, we don't care.
I think it's an honest approach, though, is we realize as defending Stanley Cup champions what is ahead of us. And these games don't really matter. We've clinched a playoff spot. We're going to be in the tournament. We'll control our own destiny. We'll worry about it starting in a couple weeks. And I think that's the right approach to take for a veteran team that has already won a cup and is trying to win back-to-back.
Well, he might be telling the truth, but it's also a convenient truth for him because he can't say we got to win the Atlantic. And then if they don't, then what? I mean, if you asked him, you want to face Tampa Bay or Ottawa in the first round, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is to that. So it's not like we don't care who we play. I think they do care, but they can't say it.
Well, yes, but it's also as to your point, they're banged up. They've got a lot of guys out of the lineup. So this is not the full roster. And so we'll see in a week or two when we have our full roster back available, what we look like. And that's when we can go all out. I'm sure he'd be happy to win these games. He's not trying to lose,
right?
But he's not going to go all out and force people back into the lineup and play them additional minutes to try and win a game on April 5th against the Red Wings.
Wild get by the Stars 3-2 in overtime. Marco Rossi with the OT game winner for Minnesota. On the power play, Matt Boldy added his 26th. For Dallas in the loss, Jason Robertson gets his 34th. Minnesota led Calgary by 6 points for the final wildcard spot in the West at that point.
And Marco Rossi's OT game winner was the third time this season the Wild have won a game in the opening minute of overtime, which is tied for second most in the league this season. The most is Ottawa. They've won in the opening minute of overtime 6 times this season.
I'm guessing they win a lot of opening faceoffs. That's the case.
Win that faceoff and great skill on there. And the bad news for Ottawa, there is no 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs.
Golden Knights edge the Canucks 3-2, hurting Vancouver's playoff chances. Victor Olofsson with the game winner in the third period for Vegas as they move a step closer to wrapping up the Pacific Division title. Sabres beat the Bruins 6-3. Tage Thompson, the hat trick for Buffalo, goals 41, 42, and 43. Not a lot going right in Buffalo, but Tage Thompson certainly is a hell of a player. Blackhawks beat the Penguins 3-1. Eli Mikheyev, 2 goals for Chicago, number 19 and 20. Spencer Knight, 28 saves in net. For Pittsburgh in the loss, Ricard Raquel, career high 3/4 goal this season. And that loss officially eliminated Pittsburgh from the playoffs for a second straight year.
All right, this is not on me. You did not give me any opportunity to chime in with a note on the Bruins-Sabres game. You just blew right past it.
I did. That's true.
So that's this. I'm going to go back a game and talk about that game. And David Pastrnak having 3 assists in the 6-3 loss, which meant he had factored in on 11 consecutive goals for the Bruins at that point, tied for 5th on the NHL's all-time list. The most ever was 15 by Jaromir Jagr back in 1999 with the Penguins. He is also the first Bruins player, is Pastrnak, to have 3-point games in consecutive games since Joe Thornton back in 2002.
Would you like to chime in on the Penguins Blackhawks?
No.
Monday, we had 5 games. The Jets beat the Blues 3-1, and that snapped St. Louis's 12-game winning streak. 2 goals in the third period for Winnipeg. Alex Iafallo, who's playing on the top line for them in place of the injured Gabe Vilardi, another couple of former Kings there. He gets the game-winning goal. Connor Hellebuyck only 14 saves in net to record the victory.
This is the second time in franchise history the Jets have snapped an opponent's 10-plus game winning streak. The other was back in the first year we did this show, 2006-2007, when the then Atlanta Thrashers snapped the Buffalo Sabres 10-game winning streak. How much has changed in the NHL since our first year, Eddie? The Buffalo Sabres were on a 10-game winning streak, and the Atlanta Thrashers were the ones that ended it. Connor Hellebuyck, by the way, tying his Jets-Thrashers record for the most wins in a season. He also had 44 back in 2017-18 and is now 1 victory shy of being the 6th most in a season in NHL history. He's also tied for 5th by most wins by a U.S.-born goalie with 319. He's only 84 wins behind Jonathan Quick for the all-time record. And at this pace, he can catch and pass him in 2 seasons.
Flames beat the Sharks 3-2. Calgary had to rally to get this win. They were down 2-0, scored all 3 goals in the third period. Jonathan Huberdeau tied it with his 28th of the year, and then Matt Coronado won it with his 22nd of the season. In the loss for San Jose, both their goals were scored by Will Smith, 15 and 16 for the Fresh Prince.
And Macklin Celebrini notched a pair of assists on Will Smith's goals and passed Logan Couture for the second most points in a season by a Sharks rookie. The only one he is behind. What Sharks rookie had more points in a season than
Jonathan Cheechoo?
No, I'm afraid it was Pat Falloon back in 1991-92. He flat out passed Falloon, by the way, for the most assists by a Sharks rookie with his 35th and 36th of the season.
Any excuse I can have to get in Jonathan Cheechoo, I will do it. Lightning beat the Rangers 5-1. Braden Point, 2 goals for Tampa Bay, numbers 40 and 41. Brandon Hagel is 35th. Nikita Kucherov is 34th. Tampa Bay scored 4 power play goals. Andrei Vasilevsky, 38 saves in net. So the Rangers did get some shots on him, but only the 1 goal. And New York moved closer and closer to what it seems to be the inevitable, them being out of the postseason.
You mentioned Braden Point hitting the 40-goal mark for the 3rd straight season, tying Stamkos for the longest run in Lightning history. Only 4 active players have a longer streak of 40-goal seasons. Austin Matthews, 5. Ovechkin, 5. Leon Draisaitl, 4, which is active. And David Pastrnak, 4, which is active as well. And Nikita Kucherov got his league-leading 16th three-point performance of the season and the 106th of his career, tying Steven Stamkos for 6th most among all active skaters. The most is Sidney Crosby with 186. My goodness, three-point games. That's ridiculous. Kucherov, by the way, now tied for 2nd in NHL history for most consecutive 80-plus assist seasons. He has 3. The others on that list that had 3 are Paul Coffey and Bobby Orr, both defensemen. The record, of course, for most 80-plus assist seasons is Wayne Gretzky. Now, I keep in mind, the second place is 3. Wayne Gretzky had 13.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Nikita Kucherov probably should be getting more love for the Hart Trophy. I have not heard anyone really discuss him, but he deserves to be in the conversation, I believe.
I think he's also a sleeper when you look around the league at absolute best player in the league. You know, there's a lot of people that get the love. Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, all get a lot of attention on that. And then you've got north of the border, you've got Austin Matthews in that conversation as well. Nikita Kucherov is incredibly productive in both regular season and playoffs, has obviously won multiple Stanley Cups, and continues to be historically good as well in point production. Even now without Steven Stamkos, which you may have thought was, you know, the dynamic duo, he's proving he can do it even without Stamkos.
In a game that made both Doug and I happy, the Ducks beat the Oilers 3-2. Cutter Gauthier a pair of goals, 16 and 17, and Lucas Dostal a career-high 47 saves in net. Still no Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl at this point for the Oilers. No comment on your Ducks beating the Oilers? All right. Then we move on to the Kraken beating the Kings 2-1. Rare, surprising home loss for LA against a team that's been eliminated. But then again, a lot of their home losses have been against teams that are not making the playoffs this year. Matty Beniers and Brandon Montour scored the 2 goals for Seattle 54 seconds apart in the first period, and Joey Decord made it stand up with 28 saves in net.
Am I on the wrong day here? Because I thought they played a different day this past week. Let me double check something real quick. 1 second, please.
Do we really need to?
Yourselves. Well, the reason being is
because
if I'm thinking of the right game, Quentin Byfield had himself a hell of an effort.
Oh, yes, you are correct.
So what a goal and effort by Quentin Byfield.
That does need to be talked
here
about.
At the end of the season. He had a one-handed effort to both deflect the shot from the point and then score on the rebound while fighting off Shane Wright. Very impressive. And that's what I talk about when I said you don't need a diminutive defenseman. You need somebody big. He is 5 inches and 30 pounds heavier than, or 5 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier than Shane Wright. So when I say fighting off Shane Wright, it's more like a big brother and a little brother. You know, I get the last piece of cake, but very impressive coordination and ability to make that happen. The deflection and the rebound goal was fantastic. And Byfield, I said, he's caught fire here at the end of the season. He has 11 of his 22 goals and 24 of his 53 points in the 26 games since the Four Nations face-off.
And he had some more goals this week as well. Thank you for pointing that out. That was a terrible omission by me as a Kings fan. By the way, Shane Wright is not a defenseman, by the way. He's a forward.
I know. But I'm saying he's about the size. He's bigger, actually, than Lane Hudson.
Oh, yeah.
Which is what I'm saying. When you say you have a diminutive defenseman, that's where it comes into play. If that was Lane Hudson, he wouldn't have been able to fight him off either.
One of the most unique goals I've ever seen. I don't know if it's the goal of the year. Maybe it's in the running, but as you said, one hand deflection and then one hand push shot into the net. It's one of those ones where when you saw it real time, you didn't know what you saw. And then the replay and you're like, my Lord, that's a crazy goal.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. On Tuesday, we had 10 games, including the Canadiens beating the Red Wings 4-1. This was a 2-1 game late. Montreal iced it with a couple of empty net goals. 6th win in a row for Montreal. Obviously a big win for their playoff hopes. A big loss for Detroit. Cole Caulfield gets his 37th. Nick Suzuki is 28th. Sam Montembeault, 30th win of the year. He held the fort for the Habs. They were outshot 23-5 in the first period, 34-11 in the second. For Detroit, not officially eliminated, but this felt like a must-win for them, and they had their chances. JT Compher missed a wide-open net when it was one of those crazy rim around the boards. It bounces out in front of the net. Montembeault's not there, and he just misses it. He goes over the net. And then the game-winning goal was scored because Detroit defenseman Albert Johansson lost his helmet, had tried to put it back on his head, as he has to do, or go off the ice.
Right.
And as he's putting it on his head, his man, Josh Anderson, scores in front of the net. And the Red Wings, who have a top 5 power play, were 0-for-3 with a man advantage. So a gut punch for Detroit to not get this win. They had their chances. For Montreal, on the verge of punching their playoff ticket. They were 8 points. Detroit was 8 points back of Montreal for that last wildcard spot with that loss.
There is a Red Wings fan at work. His name is Evan. He may be listening right now. And on this night, he came by my desk and said, and I had not seen this play yet because I usually watch a lot of highlights when I get home. because I'm working, but he came by and he said, "Are we really going to be eliminated from the playoffs because a effing helmet came off a dude's head?" And yes, apparently you are. As you said, gut punch. They gave a great effort. Wasn't meant to be. But the Montreal Canadiens, you mentioned a 6-game winning streak, and Captain Nick Suzuki has been on fire in that 6-game winning streak with 6 goals and 12 points. So he is representing the captaincy well as he drags the Montreal Canadiens into the playoffs with him.
Montreal's win officially eliminated Buffalo from the playoffs 14th straight season, extending their NHL record. They have also tied the New York Jets for the longest playoff drought of any major North American sports franchise. Also, a big news for Montreal as well, as 19-year-old highly touted prospect Ivan Demidov was released from his contract in the KHL, signs with Montreal, 5th overall pick in 2024. They say he's better than Matvei Michkov, and he's going to join the team and make his NHL debut coming up this week.
Yeah, I saw the video of him taking the ice for his first practice in Montreal, and he's kind of walking behind the bench. The practice is already in progress. He's walking behind the bench to get out on the ice. And as he steps on the ice, Arbor Jackeye is there to hug him and welcome him to the ice and lead him out. And so they are excited to have him. And it's like getting a trade deadline acquisition. Yes, he's a rookie and he's never played. This is not, found money. It's not getting a proven 40 goal, but getting somebody with skill that can come in, fresh legs as well. It's got to be a jolt of energy to that locker room as they go into the postseason.
No doubt. Blue Jackets beat the Senators 5-2. Sens snapped their 7-year playoff drought, though, because of Detroit's loss. So they're in the playoffs. Adam Fantilli, 25th goal of the year. Dmitry Voronkov gets his 21st for Columbus as they live to fight another day. But they needed the Montreal Canadiens to lose some games. Right now, that's not happening. Columbus, like the Rangers and Red Wings, also 8 points back in Montreal for the final wildcard spot at that point.
It's all about perspective and expectations, as we talk about a lot in life, Eddie. You go to see a movie, if you don't expect it to be good, you're just kind of going to kill some time. You can be pleasantly surprised by how good it is. If you go in expecting, I'm going to love this movie, I've been looking forward to this for a while, you can be disappointed. It can be the exact same movie, 2 different appearances. And let's take that to the Montreal or the Columbus Blue Jackets and the New York Rangers. The Rangers won the President's Trophy last year. They're going to be absolutely gutted by performing the way they did this season. Whereas the Blue Jackets came in following tragedy with no expectations. Even if they miss the playoffs, they've got to be pretty impressed and happy with the way their team performed. Same seasons, completely different perspectives and emotions going into the offseason. One team is going to fire their coach and make roster changes. The other is probably going to extend the head coach and see what they can add to this core.
Panthers beat the Maple Leafs 3-1. We talked about Florida not caring if they win the division, but this was a win to help those hopes anyway. No Matthew Tkachuk, no Aaron Ekblad. And they also announced that Sam Bennett would not play the rest of the season. They're resting him up as well.
The rest of the regular season.
Regular season, yes, regular season. So they got goals from E2 Listerainen and Gustav Forsling to get this win. Toronto had a total of 18 shots on goal, 5 in the first, 4 in the third. John Tavares did show up. He got his 37th goal, 10 goals in 10 games for him. Joseph Woll net in this one as he and Anthony Stolhard continue to kind of rotate for Toronto. He did the best he could, but no offensive support for him. And that was the first of big back-to-back games for Toronto in the Sunshine State. Panthers on this night and then Lightning the next night.
Well, the good news for them is they're probably not going to have to face either of them in the first round. The bad news is coming up, and we will discuss it more in the second period.
All right, Canucks beat the Stars 6-5 in overtime. Mikhail Granlund scored into an empty net with 2.21 seconds left to make it 5-2, and you figure game over for Dallas. Obviously not. Again, it's 5-2 with a minute to go. The Canucks didn't even have their goalie pulled. They were basically conceding that this one was over. But Aatu Ratu scored 5-on-5 with 59.1 seconds left. That made it 5-3. Then they pulled the goalie. Pius Suter scored with 29.1 seconds left to make it 5-4. Timeout Vancouver. Pius Suter scores again with 5.2 seconds left to tie it at 5-5. The Vancouver Canucks scored 3 goals in a minute and this one goes to overtime. Kiefer Sherwood then scores the game winner in OT. I think Quinn Hughes actually played the entire overtime, which was about 4 minutes. And the Vancouver Canucks make NHL history by scoring those goals in the final minute to tie it and then win the game.
Yep.
Incredible and stunning comeback. I was watching this game, but we've talked about this before, Doug, when you score a couple of goals in the opening period and maybe it's a 2-0 win and you've missed all of the goals because you were a little bit late to your seat. If you decided to beat traffic on this one, you would have not understood what the hell had just happened. I looked away, and when I looked back, they're in overtime. I had to scroll back on my computer to see what the hell had happened.
No doubt. When you've got a minute left and a 3-goal lead on home ice and you're an excellent team like Dallas, that's money in the bank. And for them to lose that game, now granted, not in regulation, but still to lose is shocking. Kudos to the Vancouver Canucks for not giving up, the players on the ice, not giving up and making this comeback. Pius Suter, by the way, becoming the 7th player in NHL history, and I'm amazed it's that many, to score twice in the final 30 seconds of regulation. I got to think a lot of these other guys had empty net goals, not beating the goalie twice. But Pius Suter is the 7th. The others, Ricard Raquel, I remember that game with the Ducks back in 2018, Alex Kerfoot, Brad Stewart, Greg Shepard, Red Berenson, and Dutch Hiller back in 1938. Eddie remembers that game. I think that's the first game your dad took you to. But Pius Suter making history, the Canucks making history, and you're absolutely right. I left with 2 minutes to go. We're up 3 goals. I get in my car. We're in overtime, and then we lose. What just happened? Did the Stars pull the goalie? What's going on here? So shocking turn of events.
This one was not quite as dramatic, but still pretty eventful. The Predators beat the Islanders 7-6 in overtime. New York was up 6-4 with less than 3 minutes to play. Nashville pulls the goalie, and they were on the power play, so they have a 5-on-3. Stamkos scores with just over 2 minutes left to make it 6-5. Pull the goalie again. They tie it up with 39.2 seconds at 6-6. Then Michael Bunting, it was a deflection that tied it up. And then Fedor Svechkov wins it in overtime. Nashville wins it 7-6. Both teams had chances to win in overtime, but the Predators snap a 6-game skid, obviously hurting the chances of the Islanders to get a wild card spot. And Ilya Sorokin was injured in this game for New York. Lower body injury in the second period. Marcus Hogberg had to come in. He ended up allowing 3 goals on 9 shots.
I did see that after the game, Islanders head coach Patrick Roy still blamed this game on Anthony Duclair. And he's not even in the lineup. He's not even with the team anymore. But he said it was still his fault. No, Nashville, it marks a franchise, matches a franchise mark for the most game-tying goals in a single game. They had 4 game-tying goals. So they're behind, tie it, behind, tie it, behind, tie it, behind, tie it. That's keep coming back. And for both teams, the Canucks and the Predators, where was this fight all season? A great night for an otherwise disappointing season for both teams. The 300th goal, by the way, of Ryan O'Reilly's career scored in this one. So a couple of big comebacks in the NHL. One historic for the franchise, the other historic for the entire league.
More Patrick Roy news coming up a little later on. But you don't expect Predators Islanders to combine for 13 goals. But the Islanders...
No, I can tell you that if the over-under was 12.5, there would have been a lot of money on the under.
So the Islanders, though, do get a point. And at that point, you had the Islanders, Blue Jackets, Rangers, and Red Wings all tied with the 79 points. They were all 8 points back of the Montreal Canadiens. So it looked like it's just Montreal's going to win this. They're going to get that final wild card spot. At this point, it's a foregone conclusion.
Yes.
The Avalanche beat the Golden Knights 3-2. Possible Western Conference Finals preview. No Jack Eichel for Vegas in this one, upper body injury. We had a pretty good matchup, although the goalie matchup wasn't what you might expect. We had Akira Schmid in net for Vegas, Scott Wedgwood for Colorado. Other than that, though, it was a pretty good matchup as far as the names in this one. Charlie Coyle, shootout game winner for Colorado. Vegas, the number 1 power play team in the NHL, 0-for-3 with a man advantage in this one, and just 18 shots on net in this one. Nathan McKinnon had an assist, giving him 116. At that point, he was 1 point up on Nikita Kucherov in the Art Ross Trophy race. Vegas does clinch home ice advantage in the first round with the 1 point, so they could do no worse than finishing second in the Pacific. They were 6 points up on the Kings at that point. Colorado 6 points back of Dallas for the number 2 spot in the Central.
Yeah, Vegas, again, continuing their success as an organization and another great season. They're on their way to 50 wins, most likely on the year, which is tremendous when you look overall. But getting home ice advantage for a team that has had a strong home ice presence, has a strong presentation, gets the crowd involved. Remember when they first came in the league, we were wondering how much of a home ice advantage they would have. Would it be mostly transplants and people coming to see the other team, coming from, going to Vegas to see the other team?
Like
It
the
has not
Raiders
been the
games.
case. Correct. And it has not been the case. Vegas adopted this team from day one. It is their team. It is Nevada's team. And they have a very strong home ice advantage from the crowd. So they're going to have they're going to be a tough out in these playoffs, especially in the first round when they're playing the wild card team.
Bruins handle the Devils 7-2. New Jersey could have clinched a playoff berth with 1 point. They lose at home to a team that's been eliminated, a team that had lost 8 road games in a row coming in. David Pastrnak, a goal and an assist to hit the 100-point mark. He joins Phil Esposito and Bobby Orr as the only other Bruins players with 100 points or more for 3 consecutive seasons. Michael Callahan gets his first NHL goal as well. For New Jersey, Jacob Markstrom allowed 7 goals on 23 shots.
Well, I mentioned it earlier in the week, and David Pastrnak actually scored a goal and had an assist on the first 2 goals. So that extended his streak of factoring in on Bruins goals to 13 straight goals for the Bruins. So he's a one-man band there right now. And that ties him with Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux for the 3rd longest streak in NHL history. And you mentioned the Devils having a chance to clinch. I was watching the Devils-Rangers game yesterday. Or no, it was a different game, but the intermission, they were previewing one of the division matchups or the playoff matchups that is locked in, and that is Hurricanes Devils. And it was the ABC broadcast. So you've got Steve Levy, Mark Messier, and PK Subban.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked PK Subban, what do you think about the Devils Hurricanes matchup? And I don't even know why you ask him, because he's a former Devils player, and he just went on and on about how much he likes the Devils' chances. Come on, man. Show some objectivity. They have sucked at the end of the season. They don't have Jack Hughes. They're going against the Carolina Hurricanes, who are a very good team. Nobody, other than people that are myopic, like PK Subban, thinks the Devils have a chance in that series, much less a good chance. Oh, I really like their chances. Really? Really? Come on, man. It's just, why even ask him? It's like asking Mark Messier about the Rangers or something, or the Oilers. You're not going to get a straight answer. So what? Don't even ask. We know you like the Devils, PK. How about you, Mark? What do you think about this series? At least he had some objectivity, but it was ridiculous.
Well, speaking of the Hurricanes, they were shut out by the Sabres 3-0, Buffalo winning its 5th in a row. And I'm sure Sabres fans were like, great. Where was this when we actually, were in it at the beginning of the year? James Reimer, 33 save shutout for Buffalo. Tage Thompson, 44th goal of the season. Alex Tuck is 34th. Canes miss a chance to clinch home ice in the first round with a win, and that loss clinched the Metropolitan Division title for the Washington Capitals.
I don't know if I mentioned this, but the Sabres are not that bad compared to their record.
Say it every damn show.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's true. They're a team.
Again, I don't think Buffalo fans would agree with you, but it's okay.
The first half of the season was very bad. The second half of the season has been very good. And I like their chances next season. So I hope their streak ends. They're building something there. They're building the culture, Eddie. You gotta
if they only played a half a season, they'd be in the playoffs.
That's right. So next season they gotta play. Hey, look, things happen from one year to the next, as the Rangers prove.
How many years in a row have the Sabres missed the playoffs?
14.
14. Okay.
It's gonna end right now.
All right.
End right here.
Mark the tape.
Yep. No, it's a good win for them. And in all honesty, there is a lot of stuff to build upon from this, the way they're ending this season. If you flip the script, and we've seen teams do this in the past, where they have a really strong first half of the season and they absolutely collapse in the second half and miss the playoffs. then it's deflating going into the offseason. This is momentum to build upon, and I think there is some reason to think you've got some pieces here to compete. They're playing playoff caliber teams well. They're playing extremely well. They're getting great goal scoring from some of their key players that are going to be there for next season. I think there is some stuff to build around. Like the Senators, they need to figure it out themselves in net, and then they can start making progress.
Utah Hockey Club picks up a 7-1 win over the Kraken. Utah would have been officially eliminated with a loss. 7 points back in Minnesota in the wild card at that point. 7 different goal scorers for Utah. Clayton Keller is 27th. Logan Cooley is 23rd. 21st straight start for goalie Kirill Velmelka. Joey Decourt allowed 7 goals on 29 shots before getting pulled.
As you mentioned, only a couple hundred more to get to break the goaltending start streak. I think another 300 or 400 more, right?
Yes. He's on the cusp. Penguins shut out the Blackhawks 5-0. Sidney Crosby gets his 31st goal of the season. Erik Karlsson, 200th career goal, 23rd defenseman to reach the 200 goals scored mark in NHL history. And Tristan Jarry, 26 save shutout. He's had an interesting season, got sent down, came back up, won 4 in a row, then lost 4 in a row. He's now won 3 of his last 4 starts. They're trying to figure it out. He's under contract for 3 more years, $5.3 million per season. So we shall see.
Well, he's their problem. Nobody's going to claim him, obviously. We got sent down. Nobody wanted him at that contract. Nobody's going to trade for him. They can buy him out, of course, if they want to. But I think much like the Penguins or the Sabres, having him come back and play this well has to give them some confidence that he can at least be part of a tandem next season. He may not be their number one, but part of the tandem. And overall, the Penguins, their defense and goaltending have been awful this year as a team. They've given up the 3rd most goals in the entire NHL. Only the Blackhawks and Sharks, who are fielding, glorified AHL teams out there, have given up more goals than the Penguins. So they have a lot of work to do on defense and in net if they want to get back to the playoffs next season.
To Wednesday, 5 games, and the Maple Leafs beat the Lightning in Tampa 4-3 in overtime thanks to Matthew Knies, who had a hat trick, goals 27, 28, and 29, including the overtime game winner. Huge win for Toronto in their hopes of winning the Atlantic Division, and Matthew Knies coming up big for Toronto.
Yeah, he is the 7th player in Maple Leafs history to complete a hat trick with an overtime goal, and the first to do it since Matt Sundin when we first started doing this show, Eddie, back in 2006.
It's all come full circle.
Yep. And now we can rest. We said we would do it until a Maple Leafs player had a hat trick goal in overtime, and here we are.
The Wild edged the Sharks 8-7 in overtime. Welcome back, Joel Eriksson Ek and Kirill Kaprizov, who have both been out for a while with injuries. Eriksson Ek had a pants trick, which, if you're new to the show, is a 4-goal game, a natural hat trick in the mix as well with 3 straight goals. And Kirill Kaprizov had 2 goals, numbers 24 and 25, including the overtime game winner. Minnesota officially eliminating both Vancouver and Utah from the playoffs with that victory.
I mean, it's one thing if you're a Wild fan and you see, hey, Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov are back in the lineup tonight. Thank goodness we need them for the playoffs. And then to have them go out and play that well and score that many goals. Now you're worried about the defense and the goaltending, but that was Marc-Andre Fleury's last home game. So they gave him the entire start. He didn't play great, but they got the win. And the pants trick, he's the 2nd Wild player in franchise history to get a pants trick. Eddie, do you remember the other?
Marian Gaborik.
That is correct. And he was carried off the ice, if you remember correctly.
He had a 5-goal
by
game,
his teammates. Yeah. So that was back in 2007. I would like to have seen that again. Like, that's the Wild tradition. You score 4 goals, we carry you off the ice. So, but great game for both of them. And for Wild fans, it just had to be such a sigh of relief to see them both back and both playing that well.
So we mentioned Vancouver and Utah eliminated. Calgary, the one team yet to be eliminated in the West, and they would lose to the Ducks in a tough one, 4-3 in overtime. They had a 3-1 lead in the third. Cutter Gauthier scored his 18th to tie it, and then his 19th was the overtime game winner. If the Flames do not make it into the playoffs, they will look back on that one, although they got a point, but seemed to have that one in hand, but the Ducks said, not today.
Nene. And he's not going to win the Calder. He's not even going to be a finalist. So have a good off season starting on Thursday. But Cutter Gauthier is catching fire here at the end. And the talent that we were promised when he came over in the trade last year is being realized. He is a goal scorer. He's got great hands, great instincts, great ability, and that is starting to show. And he could end up being the Ducks' leading goal scorer this season, which would be quite impressive for a rookie.
Oilers beat the Blues 4-3 as Connor McDavid returns, and what a surprise, had an immediate impact with 3 assists, including the primary assist on the game winner with 21 seconds left, setting up Connor Brown. Brown with 2 goals in the win, numbers 10 and 11 for him. In the loss for St. Louis, Jordan Kyrou gets his 34th. After winning 12 in a row, the Blues had dropped 2 straight.
Yeah, that was a shocking loss to, as you mentioned, 12 straight wins. You lose to the Jets, okay, but coming back on that one, tough loss for the Blues. And you start worrying because we're getting close to where we haven't clinched yet. We should have, but we haven't, and Calgary's still there. Starts to get a little bit nervous.
And finally, the Flyers beat the Rangers 8-5. Tyson Forster hat trick for Philadelphia, goals 20, 21, and 22, including the game winner in the third period. Jonathan Quick in net for New York allowed 6 goals on 28 shots. And that Rangers loss clinched a playoff spot for the New Jersey Devils.
How about that? The Devils are in, but again, I don't expect them to be there for long. It just seems like a team that is not playing very good right now and does not have their best players, not fully loaded, but they're in, so they will control their own destiny. I should have mentioned, by the way, in that Sharks Wild game for the Sharks, Macklin Celebrini had his first 5-point game, which ties a record in the NHL for most points in a game by an 18-year-old. And that was the one where he broke Pat Falloon's franchise record for points by a rookie, as now it's 62. And fellow rookie Will Smith is 4th on that list with 45 points. So 2 great rookies for the Sharks to build around in their rebuild.
And looks like they'll have another high draft pick coming up soon as well. We go to Thursday, where we had 9 games, and the Jets shut out the Stars 4-0. Connor Hellebuck, NHL leading 8th shutout of the season, also extending his own franchise record for wins in a season with his 45th. Kyle Connor had 2 goals, numbers 39 and 40. First time this season Dallas was shut out, but they've now lost 4 in a row. Remember, they had that ugly loss to the Canucks in the mix as well, and suddenly Dallas maybe taking on a little bit of water here.
Yeah, Miro Heiskanen being out really hurts them defensively. That's a big loss when you've got your best defenseman out, and he's not going to be back for the playoffs, so that's going to be very difficult. For the Jets,
is he not going to be back for the playoffs? I have not heard.
I don't think he's back. I'd be surprised. Oh, I'd have to double check, but I don't think he's going to be back. You mentioned Connor Hellebuck. It's his 8th shutout of the season, the most by a goalie since Jacob Markstrom had 9 in 2021-22. He moves into a tie with Mika Kiprusoff and Martin Brodeur for 6th most wins in a season in NHL history. And Kyle Connor, the 2nd player in franchise history with multiple 40-goal seasons, following Ilya Kovalchuk, who had 5. Connor also getting his 46th multi-goal game of his career, moving into a tie with Kovalchuk for 2nd most in franchise history behind Mark Scheifele, who has 48.
5 days ago, Dallas Morning News Stars Jim Nill hints Miro Heiskanen could return for the first round of the playoffs. So
could.
He hints, and he could.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a guy that's going to be playing a lot of quality minutes, but I hope he's back because they desperately need him.
Capitals beat the Hurricanes 5-4 in a shootout in a likely second-round matchup in the East. Alexander Ovechkin, first home game since breaking the record, got a standing ovation, a ceremony as well in front of the home fans. The Hurricanes all shook his hand before the game. He is 5 away from 900, by the way, with 4 games left. Tom Wilson, 33rd goal of the season, a career year for him as the Caps clinched home ice throughout the Eastern Conference playoffs. They were still 3 points behind Winnipeg in the race for the President's Trophy. For Carolina, they did get a point, and that did clinch home ice in the first round against New Jersey in their matchup.
Not so fast, my friend. I don't know that Capitals are making it to the second round.
Okay,
How about that? Logan Thompson
they are.
is a big part of their success. and they are not playing well here at the end of this stretch. You talk about teams that don't care about their success. I know they've locked up first, and but they only have 4 wins in their last 10 games. This is not a team that's peaking right now on the ice, and I think a lot of the emotion was into Ovechkin's push. They have not played a meaningful game all season, and they're losing. They're without their number one goalie
all season. They haven't played a meaningful game all season.
That's correct.
All season, no meaningful games.
Have you seen one where they had to win? No.
Well, there's a lot. You could say that about Winnipeg too. You could say that about Vegas. There's lots of teams you could say that about.
No, Vegas has been in a battle for first with the Kings for a month now. They're playing games that matter in the standings. The Capitals have been clear of the field the entire season. They have not thought, man, if we don't win this game, we're in trouble in the standings. Not once. The first time they play a game where they really need to win will be game 1 of the playoffs. Whereas the Canadiens, their likely first-round opponent, have been playing playoff caliber hockey for the last month to get into the playoffs and are on a roll right now, playing very good, getting great contributions. They have an all-time contribution from their defenseman. Nick Suzuki's playing well. Cole Caulfield's playing. I'm just saying, it's not I'm with you. The Hurricanes are going to beat the Devils. I'm not convinced yet the Capitals are going to beat the Canadiens.
All right. Well, we will mark that down. One of your great predictions. The Canucks beat the Avalanche 4-1. Jake DeBrusk gets his 27th goal of the year. Kevin Lankinen, 31 saves in net. Nathan MacKinnon did tie Nikita Kucherov for points on the year. Or I should say, correction. Nathan MacKinnon tied with Nikita Kucherov for the most points this season. Did not play in this game and likely will not play the rest of the regular season. They are resting him up for the playoffs, so it looks like Kucherov will win the scoring title by, I don't want to say by default, but obviously McKinnon's done. He's not going to score any more points.
Yep.
For Vancouver, they go from division champs to out of the playoffs. Brock Besser, by the way, said before this game that he's gone after this season as a UFA. And of course, there are the rumors about Rick Tocchet possibly not being back as head coach as well. So very interesting offseason and disappointing season for the Vancouver Canucks.
Is Tocchett's contract up or is he expected to be fired?
No, I think they want him back. But
I'm saying, is his contract up though?
I think I don't know how this works, but there's an option. It's up, but there's an option. There's a 1-year option. On
whose option?
I think it's the team.
Well, then he will be back, I would expect. Because if he wants out, that's one thing. So if he had the option, he's going to leave. He's going to go take that Philadelphia job because I'm sure they'd love to have him. But I would think if I'm the Canucks, yes, this year was awful, but there was a lot of things that went into that awful. Thatcher Demko was unavailable for the majority of the season. We had 2 of our best players fighting with each other publicly and privately. There's a lot of things that went into it. Last year was great. Let's give him 1 more year and see if he can recapture what we did last season as opposed to this season. So I think if it's the club's option, he'll be back. But Besser will not. He's gone.
Yeah, I said at the deadline, that was one of the biggest surprises at the deadline that they did not trade Brock Besser. I don't understand why they didn't do that.
They fooled themselves into thinking they were still in a playoff spot. And that's the – and even if you make it, are you going anywhere? That's my thing. Okay, we made it. We made it as a wild card team because you're not going to catch the Oilers, the Kings, or the Golden Knights. So you're going to make it as a wild card. Where are you going? You got to trade him. And maybe they still will because then somebody can sign him to an 8-year extension as opposed to 7 years, which is what he'll probably get in free agency. So maybe they'll still trade him before the draft or at the draft, but they've got to get something for him. You can't let an asset like that walk away for free. Right, Islanders?
Rangers beat the Islanders 9-2 in a battle of longtime rivals. Both came in with 79 points, both 8 points back of Montreal, trying to get that wild card spot in the East. Rangers sweep the season series from the Islanders. Artemi Panarin had 2 goals, numbers 36 and 37. So no Ilya Sorokin in net for the Islanders. He's hurt. So Marcus Hogberg got the start. He allowed 7 goals before Patrick Waugh finally pulled him. He put in rookie Tristan Lennox, who allowed 1 goal on 2 shots. Waugh then pulled him and put Hogberg back in. He then allowed the 9th goal for a total of 8 goals allowed for Marcus Hogberg. Of all people, Patrick Waugh doing this with his goalies? What is he doing?
Well, he said after the game, Lennox was brought up. He had played the day before in Bridgeport. So he's playing a back-to-back. And he said, I shouldn't have put the kid in at all because he was not ready to play an NHL game. And it wasn't fair to him. And that's why he got him out of there so quick. The second shot goes in, and he's like, I got to get him out of there. And Hogberg's back in. So, yes, your reference to 30 years ago when he was left out to dry by the Canadiens and said, I'm done playing for this organization, and was off to Colorado to help them win Stanley Cups. But Marcus Hogberg's not in that situation. He knows the drill at this point. We got an AHL guy that played yesterday and isn't NHL caliber. We've got our number one starter is out. You're going to have to bite the bullet on this one and get out there. And so he tried to do him a favor. Lennox clearly was not up to it. He admitted that he was wrong for putting him in the begin first place in the game. So, yeah, tough ending to the season for the Islanders right now. And to get waxed by your rival who's having an awful season, like the Rangers are terrible this year, but they're still good enough to absolutely kick your ass all over the ice. That's embarrassing. So, and sweep the season. Adam Fox, by the way, reached 50 assists on the year for the fourth straight year, moving him into a tie for the eighth longest streak among defensemen in NHL history. Next season, he'll have a chance to move into a tie for fifth. And then if he gets to 6 seasons, 2 more years, he'll be in a tie for third all-time. He is unlikely to catch the all-time leader, by the way, for most 50 assist seasons in a row. Paul Coffey had 13. It's by defenseman.
Oh, defenseman, sorry. Panthers beat the Red Wings 4-1. Red Wings, like the Rangers and Islanders, obviously needed to get a win and also get some help. But they wouldn't get that as Brad Marchand scores his first goal as a Florida Panther. Alexander Barkov gets his 20th as well. In the loss for Detroit, Alex DeBrincat his 36th. And congrats to head coach Paul Maurice. Career win number 915, passes Barry Trotz for third on the all-time wins list behind only Joel Quenneville and Scotty Bowman. And Florida 1 point behind Tampa Bay at that point for second and home ice in the Atlantic.
He's been a great coach everywhere he's gone, and he's had success everywhere he's gone, except Toronto. That's a tough place to coach and play, man.
Blue Jackets beat the Sabres 3-2. Columbus had to go 5-0 in their final 5 games to have a shot at making the playoffs. Well, at that point, 1 down, 4 to go, as they did rally down 2-0 to get the win. James Van Riemsdyk scored on a breakaway. Zach Austin Reese tied it, and then Captain Boone Jenner gets the game-winning goal on the power play.
That's his 43rd career power play goal, surpassing Cam Atkinson for second most in franchise history. And Zach Werenski got his 76th point of the season, tying Ray Whitney for fourth most by a Blue Jackets player.
Kings beat the Ducks 6-1. 3 power play goals for LA's struggling power play. Kevin Fiala had 2 of them. Darcy Kemper at that point had allowed 2 or fewer goals in 15 straight starts. Franchise record 30th home win for the Kings as they moved 4 points up on the Oilers for home ice. And the Kings do have the tiebreaker regulation wins over the Oilers as well. So Edmonton can't just finish tied with LA. They will have to finish ahead of them if they want to get home ice in the first round.
Now, you mentioned you're going to make a note of my predictions to rub it in my face in the future.
I would never do such a thing.
You going to give me any credit for my prediction on this game?
Yeah, you said it was going to be 3-1.
Did I predict the first 3 goal scorers of the Kings?
I don't know. Did you?
Yes.
It was 6-1. Exactly. You said it was going to be 3-1. It was 6-1. You really want
Did I predict exactly how many saves Darcy Kemper would have?
Did you say that the Kings would score 3 power play goals?
I said it was going to be 3-1. That's true. But I predicted the first 3 Kings goal scorers and exactly how many goals. Look, we were having a group chat with you, me, and Prick Boss.
He's Prick friend now.
Yeah, and he said, he was doing the Lou Holtz. This is going to be a tough game. And I said, it's not. You're going to win. You're going to get 2 points. And I said, in fact, Kevin Fiala, Quentin Byfield, and Anze Kopitar are going to score goals, and Darcy Kemper's going to have 24 saves, which is exactly what happened.
Well, you need to go to Vegas or go buy a lottery ticket because
it was lucky.
Unbelievable.
It was lucky. But when I get them right, I like to bring it up because I don't get them right very often.
Golden Knights beat the Kraken 2-1. William Karlsson, an original Golden Knight who has missed a lot of time this year, scored the game winner on a nice wrist shot Tomas Hertl, out since March the 23rd with an upper body injury, did return for Vegas. No points in 16 minutes. No Jack Eichel for a second straight game. They're resting him up for the playoffs. So Vegas, 7 of their 8 years of existence have been in the playoffs, and they are on the verge of winning their 4th Pacific Division title. My LA Kings, by the way, have won exactly 1 division title in their history. But they have 2 Stanley Cups. I'll take that.
Golden Knights could have that many very soon as well. I did see that when Tomas Hertl took the ice, Mark Stone said, "You could do that? You could return before the end of the season?" And they said, yeah, it's legal. We're under the cap this year. We're fine. So good to see him back for Vegas. They needed another weapon, but when you get a couple games to get the rust off and get your timing back, I think that helps a lot as opposed to returning for game 1 of the playoffs. That's a tough one to jump back in.
Blackhawks beat the Bruins 5-2. Chicago gets 2 goals from Nick Foligno. Ryan Donato gets his 30th. And for Boston, of course, David Pastrnak had a goal, his 42nd, also an assist. He now has 102 points on the year.
Once upon a time, ESPN would have forced that game down our throats, even though both teams suck this year. Because it's Bruins Blackhawks, everybody. And 2 of the best teams in the league. Not really.
Predators beat the Utah Hockey Club 4-3 in a shootout. Philip Forsberg scored his 31st of the year in regulation and the only goal in the shootout. And that was the final home game this season for the inaugural season of the Utah Hockey Club. Didn't go quite as well as they would have hoped, but seems like the folks in Utah enjoy hockey. They got some pretty good ownership, so we'll see where it goes from here.
Yep, and that means the next time they take the ice on home ice, they will have a name and not be the hockey club.
It's too bad it's not the Yeti.
Yeah.
Moving on to Friday, we had 5 games. The Senators beat the Canadiens 5-2 in the battle of the 2 teams holding down the wild card spots at that point. Very simple for Montreal. If they win this game, they would be in and would officially eliminate 4 other teams. That did not happen. Senators with a strong start, jumping onto a 3-0 lead. Shane Pinto opened the scoring 28 seconds in, and he finished the scoring with an empty net goal, his 20th of the year. Ottawa 5 points up on Montreal for the number 1 wildcard spot at that point. Also, the Senators were 4 points back of Florida for 3rd in the Atlantic. Still no Brady Tkachuk, missed his 6th straight game. Montreal's 6-game winning streak snapped, and they do not sweep the season series from the Senators. And there was much rejoicing between the Rangers, Islanders, and Blue Jackets, who were all alive for at least one more day, thanks to that loss by the Canadiens.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it. You mentioned Brady Tkachuk there, but he's going to be in the playoffs for the first time in his career. And Jeff Skinner is going to be in the playoffs for the first time in his career. Jeff Skinner, in his 15th year and has played over 1,000 games, will finally get to see playoff hockey as
with the Oilers
participant. Yes. Ottawa's Brady Tkachuk, though, is the kind of guy that looks built for playoff hockey with his playing style and skill. Jake Sanderson for the Senators, 6th defenseman in franchise history to reach 100 assists. And Thomas Chabot became the 3rd defenseman in Senators history to have 300 points.
Flames get a huge win over the Wild 4-2 to keep their playoff hopes alive, bouncing back from that ugly loss in Anaheim in their previous game. Yegor Sharangovich had a beautiful deflection goal. Nazem Kadri scored on the power play. Ryan Lomberg on a breakaway. Flames prevent Minnesota from clinching while moving 3 points back of both the Wild and the Blues for that final wildcard spot in the West. Flames and Wild each with 3 games left at that point. The Blues with 2. Minnesota goalie Philip Gustafsson pulled in the 3rd period after allowing 4 goals. And no points for Kirill Kaprizov or Joel Eriksson Ek, who had that big game in their return.
Yeah, they were tired still from celebrating the previous one. Nazem Kadri, by the way, that was his 32nd goal of the season. That matches his career high. He's done it twice in back-to-back seasons, 2016-17 and 17-18. He also had 32 goals. So if he gets one more before the end of the year, he will set a new career high in goal scoring.
Oilers beat the Sharks 4-2, and the Oilers, unlike the Canadiens, also a chance to clinch a playoff spot, but they get the job done. 6th straight year, the Oilers have qualified for the playoffs. Connor McDavid had 4 assists in this one. 2 games back, he's got 7 assists. Has not scored a goal yet, but a lot of other guys have. Oilers moved 2 points back of the Kings for home ice in the first round of the playoffs. Also for the Sharks, I'll mention it this time because I didn't before. On Macklin Celebrini note, didn't have a goal in this one, so he was still tied with Matvei Michkov in rookie scoring with 24 goals each.
And for the Oilers, that was the 165th time Connor McDavid has factored in on the Oilers' opening goal, which breaks Wayne Gretzky's franchise record. Not quite the chase that we saw with Alexander Ovechkin, but he did break a Wayne Gretzky record. He also reached 70 assists for the 5th straight season and becomes the 4th player in NHL history to have a run of that length. Gretzky had 13 straight seasons. Bobby Orr had 6. Adam Oates had 5 70 assist seasons in a row.
Oilers, by the way, continue to be besieged with injuries. Is that a word? Besieged?
Yep.
Matthias Ekholm and Zach Hyman both left this game, did not return. Still no Leon Draisaitl, and not good news on Ekholm. They're saying he will not likely play in the first round, at least, and he could not play again the rest of this season.
Yeah, the update that I saw, though, is obviously McDavid's back and productive, and Draisaitl said, I could be back if I needed to, but I don't, so I'm going to rest until the playoffs. So he's going to be there for game 1.
He will be, but I don't think he's I'm pretty sure he's not going to be 100%. I know I have not examined him as his doctor, but
pretty sure or praying?
No, I mean, if you saw the way he went down,
I did.
He looks like he's got a groin injury, and he'll be back, and he'll still be a handful, but he's not going to be 100%. I do not believe. So we'll see. Red Wings beat the Lightning 4-3 in overtime, and that Canadiens loss meant that Detroit needed to win to stay alive, and they got it in dramatic fashion. Marco Kasper, the hero for the Wings, tied it in the third period and then won it in overtime. Goals 17 and 18 for him, for the 21-year-old former first-round pick for Tampa Bay. They do get a point, 2 points back at Toronto first in the Atlantic. No points for Nikita Kucherov, so he remained tied with Nathan McKinnon in points with 116. One injury note for Tampa Bay, Oliver Bjorkstrand listed as week to week. He was a trade deadline pickup from Seattle.
And for the Red Wings, Marco Kasper became the 4th youngest player in Red Wings history to score his first overtime goal. The 3 players that have done it younger than him are all on the team. Lucas Raymond, Moritz Seider, and Steve Yzerman, his GM, who is the youngest one, just 18 years and 170 days when he scored his first one. So all 4 guys now active members of the Red Wings payroll.
One other Tampa Bay note, I mentioned it on this day because it happened earlier in the day. Their draft pick, his draft pick, Isaac Howard, won the Hobey Baker Award as the top player in college hockey. But he has said he is not signing with the Lightning. He's going back to Michigan State for his senior season. So not sure what the issue is there. I'm guessing money. Also, the other 2 finalists for the Hobey Baker, Zeev Boyum, a defenseman from the University of Denver. He's going to join the Wild apparently this week.
Yeah.
And Ryan Leonard from Boston College already joined the Capitals. So those college guys joining. We've seen
we're at that weird time of year around the league where college games are over and guys are signing. I know the Ducks have a game tonight. Ian Moore, their defenseman, they signed him this past week, and he's going to be making his NHL debut tonight. So a lot of guys are joining the NHL roster. It is a weird time where you can just add players out of nowhere just before the playoffs. It's
certainly unique with the NHL. You don't see it in any other leagues that they do something.
No, like and I don't really like it that much. Like, I think the trade deadline should be the roster deadline. The roster you have then is it. You can't be adding players just before the playoffs that to add to your team. I think that's a little, because it's just a luck of the aging and the drafting. When did I draft this guy? When is he leaving college, kind of thing? And was he in college? The Isaac Howard one, that would be brutal for the Lightning. And I would imagine they will address that this offseason in trading his rights to potentially get him signed and not go back to his senior year. But he said he's going back to his senior year. That's to get out of, as we know, the loophole that would allow him to be a free agent a year from now, which we hate and that we wish they would close, but they don't seem to have any appetite to do so. But I would imagine the Lightning will try and retain some of his rights or get something for him by trading him this coming off season.
Real quick, college hockey. Congrats to Western Michigan University. They won the NCAA men's hockey title, their first ever national championship. I was actually watching some of their games because their goalie is a Kings prospect, Hampton Slakinski, freshman, backstops him to a national championship. So congrats to Western Michigan for winning the championship in men's college hockey.
I did not know that former beloved hockey announcer John Saunders played at Western Michigan with his brother back in the 70s.
That is correct. Yeah. Great reference there. Penguins beat the Devils 4-2. New Jersey scored 15 seconds into the game, had a 2-0 lead, and then allowed 4 straight goals. I don't know if you saw this, but Luke Hughes kind of summed up the night. Luke Hughes, the defenseman for New Jersey, was trying to help out his goaltender. Jacob Markstrom was laying on the ice. He was laying on his stomach. His skate was up against the post as Evgeny Malkin was behind the net trying to kind of poke it over. So the puck, and Hughes is behind his goalie's skate with his stick, and the puck trickles over. And if he just holds his stick where it is, the puck isn't going in. But he tried to poke it out, and he ended up putting it into his own net. And that kind of summed up the game for the Devils. Sidney Crosby, a goal and an assist, 1 point away from 90 points on the year. Brian Rust, career high, 29 goals on the season.
Look, the playoffs are a fresh start. We get that. Everybody's 0-0, controls their own destiny, and we're not going to talk about this game until next week next show when we really recap it for real. But earlier today, the Devils lost 1-0 to the Islanders. If anybody, PK Subban or not, thinks the Devils are going anywhere in the playoffs, I think they're out of their effing mind. This is a team that is ripe for the picking. If you had a draft, who do you want to play in the first round? I might choose the Devils first because they are dead in the water.
I did want to mention Penguins Devils. There was a connection between the two. Ray Shero was the former general manager of both those teams. He passed away this week at the age of 62. He had been working in the Wild organization, I think as an advisor to Bill Guerin, something like that. He'd worked for many years, Senators, Predators, won a Stanley Cup as a GM in Pittsburgh, and was also with the Devils. They had a tribute for him before the game. The players wore his initials, a sticker on their helmet. And we also had Greg Millen passed away this week, former NHL goalie, longtime broadcaster up in Canada. He was 67. Seemed like both deaths were at least somewhat surprising. Didn't hear anyone say that they were, battling an illness or anything like that, or maybe they were just, their privacy or whatever. But a couple of passings of note this week in the NHL, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Ray Shero obviously will be part of hockey history forever, as you mentioned, with his name on the Stanley Cup and the legacy that he left behind with both organizations. And Greg Millen, a guy that, if you've watched enough hockey over the last 20 years, you've no doubt heard him on the mic. And both losses to the hockey community, I have to think they were both battling an illness privately, and because they're both fairly young. As we know now, Eddie, 20 years ago, we would have said, oh, they were in their 60s. It's not a young man. But now we're like, that's a young man, prime of life. So
I won't say young, but not too old. I'll put it that way.
No, right. Certainly not too old. And it's very sad to see both of them. So obviously condolences to everybody that knew and loved both guys and the organizations that they worked with and for.
All right, finally, 11 games on Saturday, and the Maple Leafs beat the Canadiens 1-0 in overtime. The first time, I think, since 1957 that the Leafs and Canadiens played a game that was scoreless after regulation. Again, Montreal would be in the playoffs with a regulation win. They don't get it. They had a chance to win it in overtime. Nick Suzuki goes right down the middle. He misses on the shot, and then he loses his stick behind the net. It led to a 3-on-2, and Mitch Marner then scored the game-winning goal. Anthony Stolarz only 15 saves in net in the shutout. Jakub Dobiš had a big game, 34 saves in regulation. Montreal, again, only 15 shots on goal. And Toronto gets the win, and another missed opportunity for Montreal.
Well, they're lucky they got a point out of this. I mean, when you don't score a goal and you still get a point, that's a blessing for sure. And I'm not going to say it's nervous time, but we're down to just 2 games left. Now they need 2 points to clinch it. And if you look at the upcoming schedule, I like their chances because they play the Blackhawks next on home ice. Now, if they don't win that one, it's truly nervous time, but they can also have a Blue Jackets loss at any point there. And the Blue Jackets have a tough road ahead as they play the Capitals tonight. But then they've got a pretty pretty doable. If they win tonight, let's put it that way. If the Blue Jackets win tonight, they'll be 3 points back with 2 games to play. They play the Flyers and the Islanders. Those are 2 very winnable games. So I would highly recommend Montreal beat the Blackhawks because that'll end it and they can rest. But if they lose that game, it gets to be pretty nervous.
For Toronto, 4 points up at Tampa Bay for first in the Atlantic at that point. Have not clinched the division, but they did assure themselves of finishing no lower than second. So they will have home ice no matter who they play in the first round. And I don't know if you saw this, Toronto has won 3 division titles since expansion. So winning a division title for them is not something that they do very often.
No, I mean, it's no one in their franchise history, but I mean, what kind of team would have that? But it is a surprisingly low amount for Toronto to have 3 since expansion. Obviously, a lot more before that.
And also the point that Montreal picked up, that did officially eliminate Detroit from the playoffs. So 9 straight seasons, no postseason games in Hockeytown there.
They still have another 16 to go before they match their playoff streak of 25 straight years. So
Wild beat the Canucks 3-2 in overtime. Minnesota would be in the playoffs with a win in any fashion and a St. Louis regulation loss, but they get the win. We'll tell you about St. Louis in a minute. Matt Zuccarello scoring the overtime game winner. Sweet pass from Kirill Kaprizov in overtime in this victory. We did have a incident in this one. We'll see if your boy does anything about it. And I'm guessing he will because it involved a fight. I don't know if you saw this, but Jakob Trenin and Derek Forbort got in a fight. Trenin for Minnesota, Forbort for Vancouver. And as Forbort was laying on his back on the ice, they had gone down and Trenin punched him in the face and injured him. That's against the code. So we'll see if George Peros hands down any punishment for that or not.
I mean, he usually does not punish people for fighting. It's he loves punishing people for other things, but not for fighting usually. So I'll actually be surprised if he lays down the law on this one.
We'll see. I think he will. Kraken beat the Blues 4-3 in a shootout. A wild game in this one. Seattle was up 1-0 going into the third. The 2 teams then combined for 5 goals in the third period. Game tying goal goes off the skate of Shane Wright. It was called a good goal on the ice. They reviewed it, said no distinct kicking motion. The goal stood. Then the Kraken ended up winning it in the shootout. Colton Parayko back in the St. Louis lineup. The defenseman had a goal. So that's big for them. 7 rounds of the shootout in this one before it finally ended. So big point, though, for the Wild. I mentioned the Wild win and the Blues. The Blues do get a point. But, again, Calgary's still alive because St. Louis did lose, and so they're still alive.
Well, they'd still be alive either way. They have 3 games left. They could potentially have 96 points on the season.
I'm sorry. The Wild needed the Blues to lose in regulation to clinch a playoff spot, so that didn't happen.
Well, there you go. And then the one that gets you, though, is after a 12-game win streak, they've now lost 3 straight, and this one in overtime. So their first point in 3 games. St. Louis suddenly struggling with 1 game left to play. If Calgary wins out, it could be dicey for the Blues to make the playoffs, and that would be a shocking collapse by St. Louis.
Yeah, we'll check the standings in a minute, but the thing is here, 1 game left for Minnesota and 1 for St. Louis, while Calgary has 3 games left to try and make up some ground. So that's interesting.
St. Louis's last game is at home against the Utah Hockey Club, and if I'm looking up here what Calgary's got left,
they have Anaheim left 1 game.
Calgary?
I'm sorry, Minnesota. Calgary's got
yeah, I don't care about Minnesota. I'm talking about who gets in. Calgary has San Jose, Vegas, and the Kings.
Yeah, that's makeup of
the
Fire game there too.
Yeah, that's a tough game. 3 games, as you mentioned, in 5 days. That's tough.
Hurricanes beat the Rangers 7-3. Seth Jarvis, 32nd goal. Logan Stankoven, his 14th. The Rangers had to win to stay alive. That did not happen. So it is official. The President's Trophy winners from a year ago missed the playoffs the next season. Only the 4th team ever to do that. And the Rangers are the only team that's done it twice. The Bruins and the Sabres were the other 2. But there's going to be some changes, obviously, this offseason for the New York Rangers.
Yeah, massively disappointing season that nobody saw coming. It's why pro sports are fun, though, because you don't know what you're going to see at the beginning of the season. It was assumed they were going to make the playoffs. And I saw
Yes.
something that the Jets posted that
Yes.
of all the predictions, nobody predicted Winnipeg would win the division. A lot of people had Nashville or Dallas or Colorado.
Yep.
Nobody was saying Winnipeg. So that's why pro sports are fun, because even if you think you know, but you don't know, and you never will. So that's a shocking bad season for the Rangers. We kept thinking if they make it, they'll be a dangerous team. They did not. And in this game, it was interesting. There was a goal scored by the Rangers that immediately led to a fight that lasted quite a while. Then the goal was reviewed after the fight, and there were a lot of penalties. The goal was reviewed for goalie interference. It was not. So that changed it to me, it should have been 4-on-3. It ended up being 5-on-4, but it was a wild sequence of events there where the Rangers were trying to come back, but just not enough and way too little too late.
So we mentioned about players, college players, Russian players joining. Carolina also getting in on this. They signed big-time defenseman from the KHL, Alexander Nikishim, 23 years old. He's going to be joining the team here for the playoff push. So Carolina adding another piece as well for their postseason.
Yeah, I mean, they've every little bit helps. A little bit of fresh legs, a little bit of fresh. But you got to wonder, a guy coming over from the KHL compared to a guy coming in from college, the different league, different level of intensity, and jumping into the playoffs, that's a tough one. Although playing the Devils could be a good, he could be taking the stairs into the pool as opposed to jumping into the deep end.
Blue Jackets crushed the Capitals 7-0. Columbus had to win and hope for a Canadian loss to stay alive, but they did what they could control. They get the win. Jet Greaves' first career shutout, 22 saves for Columbus. Adam Fantilli, 2 goals, numbers 26 and 27. Zach Werenski gets his 21st franchise record for goals in a season by a defenseman. So Blue Jackets hanging on.
Not sure if you saw the highlight of this one, but you mentioned Adam Fantilli. He had a huge hit on Ryan Leonard that absolutely dropped the Capitals, and then went and scored on the same shift. Just an absolutely monster shift from the young player for Columbus. And one of those that you're just like, man, and he's proving his worth. You know, he was the 3rd overall pick just 2 years ago. He's got 27 goals on the season. This guy is elite already and is just starting his career.
By the way, we mentioned last week, Hunter Shepard was the goalie for the Capitals because Logan Thompson's hurt. And we were talking about what a great thing for him. He's getting to see Ovechkin do all these records. He's part of this incredible party, sitting there on the bench eating nachos. Well, they said, hey, kid, you got to play in this game. And in his NHL debut, he had 7 goals on 26 shots.
Yeah, absolutely got lit up. And by the way, Alex Ovechkin did not play in this game.
Right.
So they are, we have reached the NHL's maintenance day, as you mentioned, Nathan McKinnon and Alexander Ovechkin. If you bought tickets looking to see the greatest goal scorer in NHL history play, tough. He's resting for the playoffs.
Flyers beat the Islanders 4-3 in a shootout. Tyson Forrester, 2 goals, 23 and 24. Bobby Brink gets the shootout game winner. And Flyers Calder Trophy candidate Matvei Michkov picked up an assist, his 60th point on the season. Anders Lee gets his 29th, Bo Horvat his 27th, but the Islanders now officially eliminated from the playoffs with that loss. Panthers beat the Sabres 3-2 in a shootout. Anton Lundell, the only shootout goal for the Panthers as they get the victory. No Alexander Barkov, no Sam Reinhart. They're resting as well. Florida, though, tied with Tampa Bay for second in the Atlantic, both with 98 points. However, Tampa Bay does have a game in hand, and they play each other coming up this Tuesday, so that should be a good one and a possible first-round playoff preview as well. Jets beat the Blackhawks 5-4 in a shootout. Cole Perfetti with the game winner. Kyle Connor scored in the shootout as well, and in regulation his 41st goal of the season. And the Winnipeg Jets have clinched the Central Division title and the top seed in the West for the first time in franchise history. That prompted the tweet that Doug was talking about. They are 5 points up on Washington for the President's Trophy. Your last President's Trophy winner, though, to win the Stanley Cup, the 2012-2013 Chicago Blackhawks.
Yep, but still, home ice advantage throughout the playoffs if they can get the President's Trophy, which I like their chances with 5 points and only 3 games left for Washington. Ovechkin not playing, Logan Thompson not playing, Alexei Protas not playing. So I like their chances. But Josh Morrissey, the second defenseman in franchise history to record 80 career goals. He got that one in this one. Kyle Connor, you mentioned his 156th career multi-point game, surpassing Ilya Kovalchuk for third most in franchise history. And Connor Hellebuck's 28 saves were his 46th win of the year, tying Yevgeny Nabokov for the fifth most in a season in NHL history. The only players he's behind, Roberto Luongo and Bernie Parent, both had 47. And Martin Brodeur and Braden Holtby both had 48 as the most wins. And you wonder, are they going to play Connor Hellebuck in these remaining games to try and get that record, to try and get him 48 career wins on the season? Or do they rest him?
They will rest him. They will.
Why are they playing him so many games here then?
They will rest him. Nikolai Ehlers left this game with an injury after he collided with an official for the Jets. Also, Alec Martinez announced his retirement before this game. This was the final home game for Chicago. 16 seasons, 3 Stanley Cups for Alec Martinez. Golden Knights.
You mentioned the contact with the goalie. Did you see that AHL Adam Beckman, the contact with the official?
No.
Did you see that highlight?
No,
I believe he's let me look who up he is. He's a prospect up real quick. But he was going in on a forecheck. And yeah, he was suspended 10 games. He's an Islanders prospect. And he was skating into the offensive zone and the forecheck. The goalie or the referee got in his way. So he just grabbed him and threw the dude against the boards from about 10 feet away and just chucked him like, get the hell out of my way. And I don't think he knew it was the ref, but you can't do that.
Now.
Obviously, yeah. And he has been suspended 10 games for his actions.
Golden Knights beat the Predators 5-4. Game was tied 3-3 late. Defenseman Noah Hannafin scores with under 2 minutes left, and then Ivan Barbashev scores in the empty net as the Golden Knights clinch the Pacific Division title. 107 points on the season for Vegas. Only the Capitals in the East and the Jets in the West have more points than Vegas.
And they're only 2 points behind the Capitals, so it's not like they're far behind that pace. It's Vegas's 23rd comeback victory of the season, which is tied with Winnipeg and Colorado for second most in the league. Washington has the most with 25.
Utah Hockey Club 5-3 win over the Stars. Logan Cooley is 24th. Barrett Hayton is 20th. In the loss for Dallas, Jason Robertson is 35th. Wyatt Johnson is 32nd. That's 5 losses in a row now for Dallas, and 3 of them on home ice.
Yeah, where they have been very good this season. So not going in with momentum for sure. I did forget to mention on the Vegas win and clinching the division, that means that the Kings and Oilers will become the second teams in NHL's expansion era to face each other in the opening round 4 straight years. The other time it happened was the Bruins and Canadiens between 1984 and 1987. So a 4th straight meeting between the Kings and Oilers in the playoffs.
Kings beat the Avalanche 5-4. Kevin Fiala 2 goals to set a new career high with 34. Darcy Kemper almost scored a goalie goal in this one. I was at the game. It would have been my first time witnessing a goalie scoring a goal in the game, so I was a little disappointed he didn't get it. Kings 4 points up on Edmonton for home ice in the first round and extended their franchise record for home wins in a season to 31. With the Vegas win, as you mentioned, it does mean that the Kings and Oilers will play for a 4th straight time. And also with the Jets win, that means it will be Avalanche Stars in the first round as well. And Dallas will have home ice in that first round matchup.
Although, as you said, maybe that's not as good as it was a few weeks ago when they were looking at a much stronger team on home ice, but still going to be a good matchup in that one for both of those first rounds. The Kings and Oilers and Stars Avalanche should be dandy matchups between both of them. And
while we're talking Colorado, one final note, Gabriel Landeskog returning to the ice this week, played 2 games in the AHL for the Colorado Eagles. The Avalanche captain had a goal and an assist in the second game. 3 years he has missed because of knee issues, trying to become the first player ever to return from whatever that knee issue was. No players ever returned from that before. He could be back for the playoffs potentially. He's
100% going to be back for the playoffs. 100%.
Certainly, and I know like Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar and some other teammates were at his games, which was pretty cool. They didn't even go on the road trip to LA, but there to support Gabriel Landeskog. So it'll be a huge emotional boost for Colorado to have him, their captain, back in the lineup
100%. And the salary cap doesn't matter in the playoffs. So that's why I think he will be back. These are the games to get the rust off. But that's the Masterton Trophy winner as well, in my opinion. I mean, my goodness, you talk about dedication to hockey. The last time he played hockey, he won the Stanley Cup, and he hasn't
wonder if he's
been
on the
ice since.
ballot. I wonder if he's on the ballot because he didn't play a regular season game. I don't know.
Neither did Ian LaPerriere.
Wow, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. That was
guy wasn't even in the league anymore.
Let's wrap it up by checking out the standings in the Atlantic Division. The Maple Leafs looking to win the division with 102 points. Lightning and Panthers both tied with 98 points. I mentioned they play each other coming up. Senators are in as well, and the Canadiens, we are waiting to see. In the Metropolitan Division, you've got the Capitals, have already wrapped it up. 109 points. We know it's going to be Devils, Hurricanes matching up in that 2-3 matchup. Blue Jackets are hanging on, still alive with 83 points. Everyone else has been eliminated. As far as the Eastern Conference wild card, Senators are in. Canadiens and Blue Jackets, one of those teams will get in. It's looking good for Montreal, but then again, they've had their opportunity in 2 straight games to wrap it up, and they have yet to do it, so we shall see. Over in the West, in the Central, Jets, 114 points on top of the division, and you've got Dallas and Colorado locked in that 2-3 matchup, and you see the Wild and Blues trying to figure out who gets the final wild card spot. In the West,
how about a 100-point season in your third place in the division? You don't even have home ice advantage in the first round.
It's not bad. Or I guess it is bad for Colorado.
That's a brutal division.
Pacific, Golden Knights, 107 points, wrapped up the division. Kings with 101, Oilers with 97. They're locked in for that 2-3 matchup. And they play each other on Monday, so that will help to determine who gets home ice. And then, of course, the Flames still alive for the wild card as it comes down to 3 teams in the West, Wild, Blues, and Flames. If the playoffs started today, in the East, you would have the Canadiens versus the Capitals. Devils, Hurricanes, obviously, is locked in. Maple Leafs versus Senators, and Panthers versus Lightning. And in the West, you'd have the Jets versus the Blues. Stars versus Avalanche is locked in. Golden Knights versus the Wild, and Kings versus Oilers. All right. Anything closing thoughts in our first period, a busy first period on the Puck Podcast?
No, stick around for the second period. We got a great interview coming up about the Ottawa Senators and their return to the playoffs. So stick around for that. And we will have our games to watch in the third period. So stick around for that as well.
All right, that'll do it for our first period of our YouTube show. If you enjoyed watching this, you can listen to the remaining 2 periods of the podcast. Just go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and check that out. And if you are listening to the podcast, the second and third periods are coming up in just a moment. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Doug Stolhand, and we'll talk to you next week with another edition of the Puck Podcast.